Hello, thank you for joining us today. We are at the Industry.live recording. This is our debut podcast, and I'm with Alina Rivilis. She's our guest today, and she is an innovator and a leading expert in the field of AI. Alina is going to introduce herself, but before she does that, I just want to tell you that she is a finalist with the Women in AI Summit and Awards 2025 North America. And she has been selected as a finalist in the AI in Industry Award Private Sector as an AI innovator. That is an amazing achievement, and we're so proud to have Alina with us today. Alina, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Alina Rivilis. I am actually a director of data science and AI at Home Trust Company. And recently we have merged with Fairstone Bank of Canada. And I lead a bright data science, machine learning department where we develop various AI applications. I also work around the AI strategy piece and the governance piece. And AI is becoming a very big topic. In addition to my work leading a data science and AI department, I'm also a part-time professor at Northeastern University in the informatics department, where I teach the information systems and other courses and a couple other things. I actually recently launched something called AI Future Leaders. That's an AI education program for children and teens. That's geared towards grades 6 to 12.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alina. We're really excited to have you. Industry.live, through this podcast, is gearing to help businesses understand how everyone's using technology and especially AI. This technology that has always been around, but now it's become really accessible for a lot of businesses. Generative AI, LLMs, and agentic AI, all of these are buzzwords that they really want to understand, they want to leverage for their business, but they tend to struggle unless they have a strong technology team behind their organization. So obviously, you're an innovator, you're receiving awards for this, you're building amazing solutions. Tell us what you see in terms of businesses using AI and how that is impacting whatever function that they are supporting right now.
So the word AI, that's a huge, huge and broad term. Many businesses these days actually need to start with the definitions. What is AI? How do they view it? And do they have a solid AI strategy? And to have a solid AI strategy, you often need to start with a good data strategy. Your data needs to be in the right shape and form for you to start maximizing that value from AI. And depending on what type of business you are and which industry you are, anyone out there can gain from leveraging AI. It could be generative AI tools such as ChatGPT, for example. You could have your own in-house conversational assistant where you can talk to your documents, or you can have machine learning type applications where you are using your data to predict something very specific that makes sense for you, for your business. Now, the question is, you can also purchase things. You can also purchase things like Microsoft Copilot. You have got lots of AI tools out there. And the question is, what would make the most impact for you and your business? And what is your strategy in general? Are you focused on driving sales? Are you focused on increasing operational efficiency? Or maybe you have a problem with customer churn. So to address these things, you need to start with the business first. Oftentimes, businesses start with the AI technology first and the tools, but to maximize that value, that potential, you need to actually start with the business problem and the questions and the strategy. So there's many things out there.
All right. I see that you've taken many steps behind to start talking about AI from this wide umbrella and making that more accessible. So, given that you've had this amazing journey with AI in your organization, can you talk to us a little bit about what that journey looked like from the time you started, maybe 3 to 5 years ago, and how you had to win over internal stakeholders, get their support and funding, obviously, and go on this journey with AI. And maybe we can talk about what it's yielded in the next minute.
So for us to get to where we are at, which is I have got AI applications in productions, there are machine learning models, there's a nice ecosystem, and there are lots of the business is actually using AI to drive business value. But to get here, what needed to happen was we started with the data, having a solid data platform. We also made sure that our not just our data in the right shape and form, we are using the right tools and that buy-in, that stakeholder buy-in, and identifying those business questions and where it is that we should be going after or which areas. So I work at Home Trust Company, and we recently joined with Fairstone Bank of Canada. As a bank, we tend to have extremely good data. I'm lucky in the sense that the data is quite nice. And by that, I mean transactional data, as you can imagine, which does make sense. But for those that are maybe in other industries, your data might not be in a very good shape and form. Especially from my experience, if you are working with marketing data, it might be in different systems. Your transactional data might be sitting in another system. You might have e-com site, you might have a point of sale system, and all of these systems and places, or your customer data. You might be collecting information about your customer at various touch points. So for you to get to a place where you have got data in the right shape and form for analytics and AI applications, you do need to take that time. And oftentimes companies spend, even I have seen even a couple of years, transforming, ingesting the data. So the data engineering becomes extremely important. Data science and AI cannot work without without data engineering. We rely heavily on our data engineering department to make sure that our data is ingested, it's in the right shape and form. And when I'm building something with the team, we have got full confidence that what we are producing is the right thing because our data is in good shape and form. But in addition to having the data and the tools, and your tools might be depending, you might have cloud, you might have something like Azure, GCP, AWS, right? Some of you might have Databricks or Snowflake or other tools that are maybe helping you to speed up some of that development. But the key point is to bring your stakeholders along with you on this journey. And that starts with education. And this education around not just what AI is, but around what are these use cases and where do you spend your energy and time? What do you prioritize as a business? So over the years, I have been working with the different stakeholders across the business to identify those opportunities. And we start with the business problem first. I always say, don't think about the AI. Don't think about, yes, we can generate images, we can generate text. You don't wake up one day thinking, you know what, I'm going to use generative AI to speed up my, I don't know, operations around mortgage process. You just don't think like that. You start thinking, well, if I could speed up this particular touch point, or if I could have a score that predicts the probability of a certain outcome. It could be, you could be predicting likelihood that customers going to churn, likelihood they're going to be a mortgage or they're going to uptake your product. You could be building upsell, cross-sell models, right? So you're building some predictive models, but you don't start with the model. You start with the business problem. If you don't have a churn problem, don't go after building churn models. If you are focused on driving sales, you might want to consider AI and machine learning applications around driving those sales. But to get there, in a couple of years ago, when I was doing this data science and AI, I definitely had to spend quite a bit of time with the business to make sure that there's buy-in, to make sure there's an investment in data, in analytics, and it was difficult. Especially in financial industry, obviously some hesitation is there because you need to think about, well, what are the risks if we are using, let's say, data in a certain way, or if we are doing analytics around the product or analytics around customer information. We're always thinking which tools, who has access, do we have sensitive data and information, right? And then we're also thinking about things like, well, why do this even? What is the benefit? Why should we have these models and why do we need to have these applications? But you know what? In recent years, in the past few years, selling so-called data science and AI has gotten much easier because you have got AI across all media. You've got Cloud just came out with another update. OpenAI has got obviously ChatGPT. Millions of people are using it around the world and subscribing to tools. Almost, I saw a recent statistic, something like 1 million folks almost every hour are subscribing to OpenAI's ChatGPT models. You have got AI in the news everywhere. So a lot of executives in many companies have got now AI on their scorecards. But when they want to do something with the AI in this year or next year, there's often not that much strategy or thought that goes into it. And because you are getting bombarded with so much, everything is AI these days, right? It's hard to tell where do you focus your energy.
So, from what you said, it seems like executives have really come a long way in understanding the value that AI brings. They're trying to think about it in the right way, basically understanding the business problem and then discussing how that could be turned into an AI solution that can drive results for their unit or their group. And obviously, a lot of that has been because media is talking about it, but your experience with driving stakeholders to this point, media or otherwise, what has that been like? And what have been some of the objections you've heard? And what have been some of the things that you've said to get them to understand what the real value is?
So that's an interesting thing. Over the years, I've heard many things. Some resistance, where resistance is it's similar to that when the calculator came out, there was resistance around the world for 3 months. The questions were asked, how do you know it's working? Why do we need this? We can use the abacus or use our heads. You don't need the calculator, right? Like, why do you need it? And then there was number three, the accountants came out and said, are you going to replace us? Are you going to take our jobs? The calculator was a scary thing. For 3 months, there were strikes even happening. People were picketing this new technology, right? AI is very similar. So some of those questions are, is it going to take my job? How do you know it's working? Why are you doing this? Why are we going after these applications or models? And then another good question tends to be, do we buy something or do we build something? Why should we build something in-house with a small, relatively small team? I don't have a very big team actually, but it's a very bright team. Do we maybe trust big vendors and big companies out there because they have got that scale? But a lot of hesitation comes around, is AI going to replace me and my people? And I have seen this. I have seen this quite often. What's the impact? If I start using this new tool or new application, what's going to happen? Or is it going to take more effort for me to start using this new application? So those are key questions that often come up. And you have got individuals that are curious. You've got definitely the ones that are ahead of the curve. They are going to adopt anything. And those tend to be actually, from experience, those tend to be sales teams. They're going to say, anything to help me sell. Come on, bring it on. You have models to help me target or understand my customers? Sure, bring it on. Especially if you're talking about retail. In the retail industry, the retail tends to be ahead of the curve. When you're talking financial sector, we are regulated. We cannot just do things for the sake of doing things. We also cannot do just undertake research just because it's interesting research. It needs to be safe. So when we build something, that's another question. Do we have AI applications and models that are built with safety and guardrails in place? So the past few years, I have been not just building and deploying things into production. I've also taken the steps to put in those guardrails and making sure that we have got the right environments, that we have got the right monitoring, we've got the right people and the right technology and the right oversight. And even though you have got big vendors with big names out there, we do quite extensive research to actually scrutinize everything and understand what exactly is taking place and where your data is going, how is it stored, what's happening. So your business stakeholders are going to ask multiple questions. What's the impact? What's the value? Why do I need to invest a certain amount in this? And what am I going to realize out of this? Almost every executive out there has got AI on their scorecards and their objectives for this year or next year. But many fail to realize that AI initiatives or those aspirations for AI applications, they fail to convert that into tangible value and ROI. Even if there is that buy-in and yes, we want to go ahead and do this, often that conversion from what is this doing and how is this translating into ROI and value, that piece often seems to be a challenge with stakeholders. And as soon as you bridge that, as soon as you have a clear way to measure and to verbalize and to show that if you do this here, let's say you put an AI assistant into the company, this is the value. That's the value that you're going to see. And some of these things are extremely difficult to measure. How do you put a dollar value on using ChatGPT? No, not an easy thing to do.
That's true. You touched upon governance, and I think that's something that we should definitely discuss in depth. But before we go there, build or buy. I want to focus a little bit more on that and how you decide whether to build or buy. I know prior to we prior to us sort of joining this call, you talked about building your own internal chatbot. Can you tell us a little bit about why that why the decision was made and how you make the decision for other projects?
So build or buy, that's a common question that many ask. If you don't have a team to build, you're going to be on the buy side. You're definitely going to go and purchase solutions. You might go with vendors, or you might go with big names such as Microsoft, for example. You might go depending on your preferences and your particular situation, you're going to go with those big ones, right? If you have a team in house, and also if buying a commercial solution does not fit your needs well, you might consider building it yourself. In our case, we built our own in-house AI assistant on top of our documents. The reason why we did that, we are a regulated industry. If we build in-house, we make sure that we have got that oversight and those guardrails. We have got that monitoring on the logs. We can monitor and we can set up our own architecture and the right tools. Right? So in our case, it was a situation where we were going to build. But for something like Microsoft Copilot, it's an amazing tool. It's out there. And if it fits your need, yes, you need to weigh the pros and the cons and the price tag versus what you're getting out of it. It might be a buy situation. But in our case, financial industries, actually, you know what happened in the past few years? Banks have locked down ChatGPT. So if you have got ChatGPT, the public one from Azure, from AI, from OpenAI, if that is blocked for you, you might start using your OpenAI, but from, let's say, your Azure OpenAI, your enterprise version. So in that case, you're going to build your own.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. If you had to if you had to tell us about the governance piece of it, and obviously financial services is heavily regulated, but you also know that other industries have fewer regulations. So for business leaders, do you think it's easier for them to basically choose to build if there are fewer regulations, or do you think that doesn't really play much of a role when you're deciding the build or the buy question?
If you have got the expertise to build, you might be on more towards the build side, because if you are not as heavily regulated, you might be able to use tools that otherwise you're just not able to do. We have got considerations, right? We have got information security, architecture, IT engineer. We've got many partners that we have. The way we build tends to be quite we have to work in those guardrails to make sure that we're considering safety. If you don't have those considerations, you might be leveraging pretty much open source tools out there. You might be leveraging, there's lots of large language models for you to use out there and for you to customize. There are many frameworks, but that might be an option. If you've got the expertise to build, you can do quite a bit these days. And there's many tools to even accelerate such a build. Many tools out there.
So where do you find the expertise? In your experience, do you think it's easy to find in the Canadian and North American market the right talent and build the right team so that you can get off the ground with your AI solution and vision?
I think it's possible. I think there are lots of good talent, lots of skill out there to actually build. And lots of individuals are getting more heavily into the whole building agentic frameworks, building applications with large language models, RAG use cases, that's retrieval augmented generation. That's basically when you give a body of knowledge, such as documents, and you run your AI assistant against that body of knowledge to retrieve documents and answer questions. Lots of data scientists out there are also building predictive models. It's becoming such a popular field that many individuals are going into these data science and AI degrees, which you didn't have back in my days. My degrees are in statistics and mathematics and business. We didn't have a degree that's dedicated to data science and AI. But now you have got that. You've got those opportunities now, and lots of businesses are interested in working on this. Just about any company that has data is going to want to do something with the data.
So you are in the financial services industry. When you talk about AI and you talk to your customers about an AI solution that you've deployed, do you see positive sentiment or do you see negative sentiment? And how has that sentiment changed over the last couple of years?
So when we build and deploy AI solutions, we also tend to apply a measurement framework so that we are able to communicate back to the stakeholder and answer those questions. Is it working? Is it doing what we wanted to do? And we also monitor those AI solutions. In AI, you never just build something and set it and forget it. It's a repetitive circular type process where you build, you update, you modify, you monitor, you check for drift, you check for, is it actually delivering that value? Is the business actually using it? If the business is not using your application, you can't do much about it, even if it's the most amazing model. Also, if it sits on your notebook, on your laptop, but nobody knows about it, that's not good as well. So when we deploy something, we measure. We often do pilot studies. In data science, that tends to go well. You tend to run a pilot study. Maybe you leverage synthetic data, or maybe you run a small scale trial, or you do some experimentation and before you actually, and that helps you get the buy-in before you get into deploying it into production and building. So we set up those KPIs in advance or start thinking what it is to measure and how to validate. And even when we launch something across the whole company, we still continue to measure and we still continue to monitor and see the usage. So your AI solution, at the end of the day, it could be a score on the dashboard. It could be something with a UI that the user is engaging and interacting with, or it could be something in your CRM system. For example, some predictive models that go into Salesforce or Dynamics D365 and helps you understand the customer a bit better. But you need to think in advance which metrics you're going to measure. It's a good idea to also see who is using in the business, how is it being used, and is it actually driving any business value? So you cannot always do A/B testing, test and control. In some industries, you cannot have test and control, but you still can try and get some sort of baseline. So you might compare previous year to this year. The more clean, the cleanest experiment would be to stratify 50 or something like that. Half of the individuals use AI, the other half do not use AI. But that's not always possible, right? You cannot do that. Or, well, not every industry or case allows for that. But you can think about what KPIs would make sense. And you can do a couple of things. You can run some surveys. You can ask, how are you using this? You can take a look at who is using. You can get into some usage statistics. And you for sure have got some KPIs and reports on the health of your business and efficiency and performance before you had AI in place. For sure, you have got a different economy right now. That's also going to be a factor. But you can try to adjust for some factors and compare how did things look last year versus how it looks like this year.
Sounds really good. So you at the start of the podcast talked about a venture that you're working on, and that's going to be providing AI education for future leaders. So what prompted you to do that? And can you tell us about what have you included in that and what that looks like?
So what prompted that? A person that tends to work in AI. I tend to play with AI on my weekends. I just love this field quite a bit. As an executive in AI, the reason why I feel passionate about AI education for future leaders is I'm a mom. I'm a parent. Because I'm a parent, I started seeing, well, I would like my kids to have AI education or understand a little bit about this, right? And I started looking around, are there any good courses? Are there programs out there dedicated to this? And I'm not seeing that many. There's lots of coding schools, right? There's lots of that for kids, maybe building video, right? And there's math and science, but this is different. And those individuals that are going to learn AI, they are going to be the most successful ones in the economy. The Global World Forum is predicting AI skills, creativity skills, and essentially curiosity right? Those are going to be, that's the skill that's going to be the most important skills in 2030, in the next 5 years. And I'm not seeing that many schools offering an AI curriculum. So I decided to put together industry experts, smart individuals, PhDs, master's level individuals, those who are working in the industry, to come up with strong curriculum. And we have got also a board of advisors and experts who help customize and tailor this curriculum so it makes sense for ages 10 to 18, basically. And I think AI education can be fun. And lots of kids are actually using AI these days.
Of course, yes.
They are using AI, but without understanding what it is. And it's important to have that safety and ethics piece in your education, which is a big portion, and why I also decided that, because I'm seeing that that's missing a bit in other programs out there. So at the AI Future Leaders, we try to focus on what is AI, how does this work, how to build with AI, even how to build your own models, but also how to do it safely, and the ethics piece around it.
AI ethics is something that, obviously has a lot of tension on social media. What are your thoughts on AI ethics, and what do you feel would be things for leaders to think about when it comes to AI ethics? I think unless, we as humans, if we don't have a law around something, well, we don't tend to think about it. And unfortunately, depending on which country depending on which industry, we do not have very strong regulations or guidelines for the ethics part of AI. There was this big thing going around, or actually, there are many lawsuits right now around plagiarism, because AI is trained on essentially public information. That's how AI is getting trained to generate something. So if you've got text data, you train AI with lots of text data to generate text. You can do this with images. You can do this with videos. You can do this with sounds. You only need a couple of seconds of somebody's speech to mimic it and generate more speech. So the ethics part, it gets fuzzy. And depending on the industry, that also gets complicated. So the ethics part, you start thinking about this. Obviously, in regulated industries, you have to think about it. You have to make sure you're regulated. We are under OSFI. We cannot just start working with data or run models which might be unethical, or leverage personally identifiable information or sensitive data, right? We do take lots of measures to make sure our data is protected. And the applications and what we do with the data, we have got a lot of guardrails on top, and our systems and tools. We have got a ton of tools. But let's say you are not in a financially regulated industry, or other industries such as healthcare. Healthcare also has to be quite, rigid and strict, and lots of guardrails around patient data, and right, just like financial data, patient data, health data, very important. But let's say you are in an unregulated industry. Lots of AI tools are out there. It's you and your attitudes towards it, and how far you're gonna take AI. There's lots of individuals, and how should I say, bad actors that are using AI for not such amazing things. Lots of scams are going around. You've got deep fakes, you've got videos and sound. AI is extremely good at generating. In industry, right? What tends to happen is we have got some legislation and regulation in Canada. And what businesses are doing, we are following this. We are standing, you might be standing a committee to overview your AI use cases, to review them, to approve them, to assess the risks, and to have like this governance oversight. And ethics is hand in hand with your governance and your oversight. Sounds really interesting. My next question would be, a lot of businesses that are in Canada are small and mid-sized businesses. That makes up, I think, almost 95% of the businesses that operate in Canada. For those business owners and those business leaders, what should be the first step in adopting AI?
I think you should start with your strategy. There are lots of AI tools out there. You can actually have a lot of gain from AI. Lots of gain is possible if you go about it in a smart way. If you start thinking, well, in my business, I'm a small business. For me, it's all about operational efficiency, driving sales, understanding my data. You might start with some of the slow hanging fruit and leveraging commercially available tools. And not all the tools out there you have to buy. A lot of them are free to use. And you need to start thinking, you need to start from your strategy first and start aligning your strategy and only then translate that into AI applications.
Thank you. Are there any pitfalls to avoid when first dipping your toes into AI?
Some companies, they think that if they hire data scientists, they're gonna immediately generate value with AI. Or they think I'm gonna go buy Microsoft Copilot and that means I have got AI. But if you hire a team of data scientists, but without that strong leadership on top and alignment with your business strategy, you're not gonna get far, because data scientists tend to be extremely good at building the models, building the systems, but without knowing what to build, they're not going to be as effective. And it's very difficult to find those, unicorns that understand the data and the coding and also understand the business strategy. You often need the translator between the data team and the business. So to avoid those pitfalls, make sure that your data team has got good leadership and that is aligned to your business stakeholders. And to maximize, what tends to go well for all of these projects, when you have got a clear line of communication and your data teams have got access to the business teams. If you start building something outside of the business, you're not going to do well. You're going to fail, because what data scientists think might be a good idea might not work for the business. So having that stakeholder is good to have, but also subject matter experts from the business, and making sure that the data science team communicates often and communicates a lot. It's better to communicate a lot. And you would want to do that in addition to going after the tools and the technology and all of this AI and the change management piece, the process. Once you build those applications and those tools, you also need to consider the learning piece, the change piece, because your process is going to need to change. Even if you give everyone in your company, let's say, access to an AI assistant, something similar to a ChatGPT, you're going to have some folks loving it and using it every day. And then you're going to have a lot of individuals maybe not knowing what to do with it. So you need to get into the change management piece, into the training piece, and the best practices piece. And that is something that you need to consider for your AI investment, that change management piece and the learning piece and that curve, that adoption curve, it's going to be there.
Sounds really good. From your perspective, what would be the most interesting use case you've seen with AI in recent times? What has excited you the most?
There's a lot of applications, lots, a lot around agentic AI applications, and we actually have got some of those applications as well. And there's so much out there. So lots of AI applications around text, where AI is summarizing something, rewriting something, optimizing or automating reporting, for example, and document analytics and processing, where you join things like OCR, optical character recognition. You might be scanning your documents, extracting the data, and then the AI part comes in that does more analytics on the data to speed up your pipeline and your process. So working with unstructured data, but also working with just documents, a lot of businesses can gain that efficiency by speeding up some of those repetitive tasks out there. And with agentic applications, you tend to have a system where, think to yourself, an application, but it has instructions. It tends to have some sort of memory. It also tends to have access to large language models, and it might act autonomously. It might interact with other so-called agents. And if you are smart about setting these agentic systems, you can actually gain quite a bit of efficiency. So in previous year, we had a lot of hype around RAG use cases. I'm talking to your documents and retrieving information. Now we have taken this to the next level, where you have got multiple agents now, and your RAG use case might be one of your agents, for example, right? You can have one agent. I'll give you an example. You can have one agent, let's say, writing emails based on instructions. You can have your machine learning models scoring and producing scores such as likelihood the customer is going to buy something, likelihood the customer is going to churn, likelihood propensity scores for certain behaviors, right? And that could serve as an input into your agentic system, plus your business rules and your instructions, right? Your agent might be crafting customized follow-up emails. Another agent may be validating what the first guy did. So one AI is writing the email, the second AI validating. There might be a third one translating it into French. There might be another one stylistically guiding and massaging this into a nice looking email. And then you might want to keep your human in the loop approach and have the individual review what AI produced. So those types of interesting applications speed up things quite a bit, operational efficiency. And those are very exciting applications for any industry out there, where you have got customers, you've got products, you can definitely improve and enhance the way you do customer insights and analytics, the way you do your product analytics. You can plug AI into your marketing pipelines, into your CRM pipelines, and a big gain tends to be on the operational efficiency piece.
Sounds really fun. The use case you talked about having multiple agentic AI basically doing the work for you and then the human in the loop approach. I think that's just what the market's going to see in the next year at best. It's already here and I see a lot of salespeople talking about it. So this is really exciting. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about yet?
I think, you know what other trends are? We have in past years developed languages, coding languages to talk to machines. Now we have got a human approach to talk to machines where we can submit prompts written in human language and the machine translate that into code and applies it on your data, for example. And that's where it's going. You have got a lot of companies out there plugging in AI, increasing, I guess, the usability, because not everyone out there is going to want to code or is interested in coding, but AI is definitely going to bring a lot of opportunity to just about anyone out there. And because of this new way of communicating with your data, I think that's going to unlock a lot of potential out there. And yes, many are saying, yes, AI, there's lots of reports, the impact on our jobs, the impact around, is AI going to take your job? That's a big one. Or is it going to be the human who knows AI that's going to take your job? And most likely. And yes, AI is automating and potentially taking over certain tasks, yes, and maybe even jobs. But at the same time, AI is generating a lot of jobs, new jobs. And this is a very exciting field to be in, to be honest.
I'm really grateful to you for your time. I think this has been a really fun conversation. And I feel like you've really touched upon not only what your business, which is a large organization, does with AI, but also what smaller or mid-sized businesses can do with AI if they really think about the strategy first versus diving headfirst into a particular tool that's sort of been trending in recent days, weeks, that's caught their attention. So I think businesses that listen to this podcast and listen to you should get a good idea of where to start. And obviously, they can also reach out to you on LinkedIn for to have a conversation and to learn more about your new venture. And if they are interested in sending their kids to learn from your program. Anything else before we close our session for today?
It was wonderful to speak with you on this topic. As you can see, I'm very passionate about this. I think anyone can use AI and anyone out there can learn about AI. And it is important to educate yourself. It's very important to understand how it works so that you can use it safely and responsibly. And I'm all about that human-centric and that ethical approach to leveraging it in your everyday life.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on today's session. It was our debut session. Please give us feedback, and we'll definitely strive to improve. Thank you so much for listening. Industry.live. Bye bye.